Hey, it's Canucks this week with Dan and Randip, and we got to start off with the Canucks. Of course, picking up 3 out of the last 4 points against the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. Awesome, but you still essentially need to run the table to make the playoffs. Dan, the question is, should the Vancouver Canucks have shook it up more and made some bigger impact trades at the deadline earlier this week?
Yeah, they absolutely should have, Randy. Look at this season and where it's been and how far they've come. But at the end of the day, the playoffs are still such a long shot. And I know they moved on from Tyler Mott. They could have done more. There was options to trade Luke Shen, but they decided that he's too valuable a piece in the room and still signed at a very good price for next year. So I guess it makes sense given how good a fit he's been next to Quinn Hughes. But there was so much talk about being able to do more and interest in Connor Garland, Brock Besser, JT Miller, all of these big stars. And they've essentially just punted it to the summer. Now, we'll never know exactly what the offers were on the table. We're led to believe, the Rangers a while ago when the rumors really first started to heat up had maybe Nils Lundqvist, a first, and Philip Hedl on the table. That's not good enough for me for JT Miller. I'm sure it's not good enough for a lot of Canucks fans, but I think if you were a little bit more aggressive, there was some options to do more. It's like, going to your favorite fast food joint, you get your combo meal with the fries and the drink, and you're wondering, should I get an extra 6 nuggets? And maybe not, but usually you should. You want the extra nuggets. I think the Canucks needed to do a little bit more here because there's room to do things in the summer, but you want to have available cap space to take advantage of some teams that are going to have some inevitable cap casualties.
All right, YouTube viewers, Dan's ready for the weekend when he starts talking chicken nuggets. All right, so there you go. He's ready to let loose this weekend.
I mean, junior chicken, the extra things, all of it, anything. The side McWrap, anything. I'm good.
Okay. You want the extras. Okay, I'll give you an analogy that people in Vancouver will get a lot, right? You can list your house for 2 to 3 million bucks, which is pretty standard in Vancouver. Guess what? You need a buyer, and there was no buyer. And Connor Garland, JT Miller, Brock Besser, you can put all of those guys in the market, or at least ask what teams are willing to give up. But as Vancouver home buyers or potential home buyers know, it's really hard to get to that level. JT Miller, he's at an all-time high this year, and should have somebody reached out, there's a couple of teams that we'll probably get to in a couple of minutes here to talk about. But unless you get that market valuation, you're not moving him. Connor Garland, a very, very valuable contract. Points per 65 on 5 is among the best. You better be getting a very good deal if you're going to even consider moving him. And Brock Besser, he's the opposite. His situation is kind of dark right now because that contract situation is kind of the dark cloud above Rogers Arena. What is his valuation? So if you were to deal him, you're not getting a value right now for him. You're not getting proper value from him. You're probably getting those in the offseason. So while I understand, the Vancouver Canucks are in a position where they're already probably on the march to not making the playoffs. It's going to be very difficult. They're going to have to win essentially 14 games, which is going to be tough with the schedule they have. So I get it. They probably should have moved 1 or 2 more pieces. But the fact of the matter is, you need the market to match that. And if you don't get that deal, it's not on Jim Rutherford. It's not on Patrick Allvin. It's on the other GMs in the NHL to not meet that price. If you don't meet it, you don't make any of those deals.
You know what? Now that I think about it, the NHL is very much like Vancouver real estate. You have a lot of bit parts and not so great places ending up going for way over asking, but the nice stuff is maybe just priced out of the market. And I think that's where Vancouver found themselves. Some of this is, as I said, the offers maybe just weren't good enough to really entice Jim Rutherford or Patrick Allvin to make a move on any of their bigger players because they were taking phone calls. They were listening. Just the offers never really were where they thought they should be. And I mean, when Brandon Hagel goes for 2 first-round picks, what should JT Miller go for? A lot more, right? So there is some of this. And I think a lot of it can be turned around back to NHL GMs are just cowards. Every time this time of year, they overspend for bit parts and role players like Ben Sherratt. Can you believe the package Ben Sherratt got? Unbelievable, man. It's crazy the prices they will pay for good in the room, good size, this is a playoff type player, but actually good players are potentially on the market and they get all skittish about paying the prices that it would take to get them. And I think the two biggest culprits, producer Drew's not going to be happy with this, but Colorado could have done more. They've got a ton of great prospects and only so much more time where they're not really in salary cap hell. This was a bigger chance to do more for the Colorado Avalanche. They didn't do it. And the New York Rangers are chief among the old boy NHL, paying too much for role players that aren't actually going to improve your team. Like the New York Rangers have like 9 bottom 6 forwards. What are you doing with them all? I don't even understand what Chris Drury is trying to do with that roster. They so clearly need a top 6 forward, but weren't willing to give up anything of actual value to go out and get that while they have Igor Shesterkin playing like Dominic Hasek of the 90s. Like this was your opportunity, Drury, and you pooched it.
I will not stand for any Andrew Kopp slander on this YouTube channel. I'm a huge fan. I love what he brings.
Yes,
New York Rangers. The New
Andrew
York
Kopp, Tyler Mott, great players. The Rangers already have 6 of those guys.
Playoff style players. I don't mind those moves because I look at the Rangers and say, yes, they need to make progress this year, but are they all in this year? No. The Colorado Avalanche, however, Nazem Kadri's contract is up. They're going to have cap issues there with Nathan McKinnon's next extension. What are you building for beyond this year? You're going to commit some serious dollars to your star player. And what are you looking at for the next 2 years? You need some value. So if there was one team to make that home run swing, and Artturi Lehkonen is a very, very good player. I like that move further down the roster. But what's your backup plan to when Kadri probably leaves because you can't afford him? Alex Newhook's a good player, but you want to build out that depth at least for 1 year. To me, that move would have been JT Miller, where you're saying, all right, for 1 year, we're going all in and we have the prospects to play around with. So I don't really fault the New York Rangers too much because they might be a year too early, but the Colorado Avalanche, with not making a move here, they might be too late in terms of maximizing their window. So to me, this is a move that they should have made. But beyond that, though, in the NFL, we see this. We just saw the Tyreek Hill deal where the Miami Dolphins took a move and said, all right, we're going to try to maximize our 2 years. Different sport, but you talk about the cowardice in the NHL GM circles. I think in the offseason, that's going to change, Dan, because there's a lot of players that are going to be up for grabs. We talked about the 3 with the Vancouver Canucks. I'd like to add a couple of other names in there. Patrick Kane may be moved in Chicago. Jonathan Toews is uncertain about his future. If Winnipeg misses out in the playoffs, I think Mark Scheifele's name is going to be popping up a lot more as well. They're going to probably have to change something up there. So when we talk about in-season moves, GMs are a little scared. Absolutely. But this offseason has the makings of something special going with maybe some 1-for-1 deals, maybe some larger packages in terms of, prospects and, picks going across the board, because it feels like this offseason is ready for a shakeup, not only in Vancouver, but across the league, because there's some teams in some very weird spots right now.
My one of my favorite rumors of this trade deadline was the LA Kings, and Rob Blake is like, yeah, I want a good forward, but I only want to pay what I paid for Victor Arvidsson. It's like, what, you want Connor Garland for a 2nd-round pick? Like, get out of here. What is this even this conversation? But that's kind of where it's gone. And look, the offseason is going to be wild. There's going to be a ton of movement. Salary cap's only going up by $1 million as we've been heard and thought to believe for a while now. Vegas is already in a really salary cap pickle. And this is what I mean for the Canucks. If you have open and available cap space going into the draft, let's say, maybe you can get a Shea Theodore at a discount price. Maybe there are other cap casualties that happen around the league. But now Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford are going to have a really busy offseason to open some of that up ahead of the draft, because they don't want to rebuild. They want to be able to recalibrate for next September. It still will be a very different Canucks team. I thought they should have just been able to find a way to get some more work done and open up some more of that cap cushion ahead of the deadline, especially when you hear today, Randy, they're calling up guys from Abbotsford already. We want to get a look at Will Lockwood. Jack Rathbone's on standby. These are rookies that normally you'd see, through the final 5-7 games of the year. But even in the midst of this playoff race, Canucks management is saying we need to take a look at these guys.
And that's puzzling because, you've picked up 3 of the last 4 points against some very strong competition. So If all it was going to take was 2 more games for you to essentially say, all right, yeah, it looks like we're done here. The young kids are coming up. Were there some other, maybe some further down the lineup moves you could have made? I'm not looking at Luke Shen, but were there some depth players you could probably have shuffled out even more so? Stars, I'm waiting till the offseason though, because you want value for those guys. You want as many teams in the conversation. Connor Garland, Brock Besser, definitely you're not going to get value in season. JT Miller, that's the one to watch. If he's not extended this summer, what's the value now compared to what it will be in the offseason? What kind of return are we talking here? Are teams willing to meet it in the offseason?
Maybe one day, if we keep selling all these Dod Soda and Spro T-shirts, we'll actually be able to afford a house in the Vancouver real estate market.
What's more likely, teams actually paying the price for JT Miller or us buying real estate in Vancouver? I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's not us. It's not us. But keep subscribing to the video, and maybe we will get there. Subscribe to the Sportsnet YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments if you think the Vancouver Canucks should have done more at the trade deadline. We'll respond to as many as we can, and we'll see you in next week's video.